We've got tonight a great moment within the framework of the school's executive forum. And for this evening, we've got great visitors with us. We've got, and you're lucky to attend this session, we have the distinguished professor of management, Prime Minister Jean-Pierre Raffarin, who's with us. Is not coming here tonight alone, and he will be introducing the CEO of OPmobility, and Professor Raffarin will be telling us about a CEO that I'm very happy to see and meet tonight at CEIBS, which is a school, as you know, where we love making a bridge between China, Europe, and the world. And the topic of the evening has to do with the activities that are very important here. It's bridging also companies, because the bridge is about supporting Chinese companies going global. And also, as you know, it's about providing, explaining the access to Chinese markets to foreign companies. I was 2 days ago in Beijing with the Vice Minister for Finance, and because there's been, as you know, the 2 sessions report and all of this going on, and it's very important that at the school we keep going with the mission of the school, which is about China depth. There is no other, I'm saying this for CEO Laurent Favre, who's with us tonight, and he's going to share with us his experience, his thinking, his thoughts, and maybe also some of his challenges and doubts about all of this. And what is important is that the school really goes with its mission of China depth and global breadth. And just for Laurent, who's been here, you're here for the first time tonight at CEIBS. So we're very, very happy to host him. And this is so important that you can get also a case study, a real case study, and then you can have Q&A. I won't be more lengthy than this. I will say also, just for the general, for the audience, that the school will be launching something else, which is a master in management, a global master in management, with 50% of international students and 50% of Chinese students coming for these younger people. And I know that Jean-Pierre Raffarin is very, very much on this road, which is thinking about the development and the making of future leaders. Not just thinking short-term and thinking long-term. Also happy to host Andrew, who's also working in Laurent's team, being with us. We have connections in common, we've just discovered, not just the English accent, but also other things. So, distinguished professor, Jean-Pierre Raffarin, who is I think a great friend of CEIBS, a big supporter, and we owe him a lot. Personally, I owe him a lot because I've got a lot of personal friendship and esteem, but also a great friend of the China-EU-France relations. And Mr. Distinguished professor. Distinguished is very important because the etymology of distinguished is different from the others. Different is above also. So I wish you a great evening. Now, I have to be the host and the master of ceremony, which means watching the watch all the time. Prime Minister Raffarin will have, because of his commitments, to leave us by 7 o'clock. And I think that Laurent Favre is happy to be with us until 7:45. And until then, I think they're ready to lend their bodies to academic science and to Q&As. Dear Jean-Pierre.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Hi. Excuse me, I have to speak English. My English is poor. My teacher said, oh, your wording is bad. Your grammar is worse. But the flow is here. So I will speak with the flow, if you don't mind. So my excuse is that my English is just better than my Chinese, because my Chinese is mama ho ho. So it's a great pleasure to be with you tonight, because I'm working about leadership, and you are next leadership for the world, for economy, for China, for the world. You need to be leaders. You need to have a aim, target, and to know how get the target. You have to build your personality, to drive people, to have solution for a problem our generation, don't solve. You have to solve what we are not solved. So we need to have an education, but also a personal development about leadership. And sometimes I make some course in this school, this beautiful school, very famous all over the world. Your ranking in FT is now very beautiful. So congratulations to everybody. But I would like to convince you that everybody can be a leader. You have in deep personality, you have quality to be a leader. Somebody is a good speaker. Somebody is a good listener. You have something to explain to me. So, tell me, what are you? What is your name? Martin. Oh, you're very sympathetic. If I want to listen to you, I have to show that you count for me. You exist for me. So I am a good listener. And it's very happy to know how to listen. It's very happy to know how to write. It's very happy to know what is your non-verbal communication and to have your vision. Who is a good leader? A good leader is a man or woman which drive people to a destination, to a target, to a vision, to a perspective, to a future, and to choose the good way to get this future. And if you want to go to the truth, you can't have a way for lying. You need to make compatible the destination and the way. You understand my English? Perfect. Oh, no. It's fantastic. It's a beautiful day of my life. So I think it's very important to have this thinking about leadership. And today, I think that the best way of improving your leadership is to show a man who is a leader and to show you a model of leader. This model is Laurent Favre. In China, you are the champion of car industry. But there is a French who have some lesson to say for everybody. Because he is a very beautiful industrial, he is at the head of a company which is called OPmobility. There is something like 35,000 people, 40,000 people everywhere in America, in Africa, in Asia. He is leading 40 plants in China, so he's a Chinese industrial. And he has a very beautiful vision about what will be the car in the next future. You have seen the car is already changing with a lot of technologies right now. There is a new thinking of the car because it's a new vision of cities and a way of moving in the cities. So it's a big change. It's ecological change, technological change, city change. A lot of things are changing in this job. But he has vision about that. And he knows how to work with people to motivate. I visit with him during 2 days, a lot of plants here, a lot of team, and I have seen how he drive with very, sometimes, attitude of distance. I am the boss. I am the boss. It's not quite true. But also, I am very close to you. I'm very close. So, if you want to be a leader, a good leader, you have to be in charge, responsible. Happy to see you. But you need to be very close because I need you to work well. You know, you have to be motivated to success together. So we need to have proximity and we need to have distance. And you will see, he knows a lot of things. He's an engineer, he speaks several languages, he knows the technologies, but also he knows people. And he is able to drive people. And I think that a good leader is a man or a woman who is able to understand people, to motivate people, and to be able to build a vision for the future and to take the hand of people and to go up to the future. So that's the reason why when Frank, who is a very good friend of mine, we have a lot of paths in common in Europe, I'm very happy to have the opportunity to introduce my friend Laurent Favre, because I think when he will talk about his experiences, you can see what is now a modern leader. A man who knows people, who knows countries, who knows culture, who knows civilization, who knows technologies, and who knows people. So I hope that you will enjoy this speech of Laurent Favre, but I'm sure that is for you a good model of leader. And your mission when you go out of the school is to be a leader, to develop the economy of your country, to develop your team, to develop a lot of things, and to find solutions to questions which are not solved right now. I do thank you very much. Laurent, it's up to you.
Thank you, Jean-Pierre. I'm not sure I have to say thank you because I have a lot of pressure right now with what you say. I did not know what was your speech for the introduction, but it was a good one. I'm not sure you don't exaggerate a bit, but it's nice to listen to that. No, it's a great honor for me to be here today. It's always a pleasure to be in China anyway, because China is for sure the biggest market. We will talk about automotive today, but I think it's not only about automotive, it's about transformation of the world, basically, because the world is transforming very fast. It's about ecology, you mentioned that, Jean-Pierre, before. Global warming, it's about technology, artificial intelligence, and everything which also impacting the mobility positively. But it's also about geopolitics. And if today you listen to the radio or you watch television, you go to internet, we talk about geopolitics. And the mobility is in the middle of everything which is transforming the world. And I like to say that what's happening in China in a couple of years, it is what will happen in the rest of the world in the next decades. Everything is faster in China, and therefore, for us, it's always a mix of being excited, sometimes a bit scared as well about the speed which we are experiencing in China. And I will try to share that with you today, but also to talk about the next steps for the Chinese car makers, which is going overseas, because that is what the Chinese car makers are doing very fast right now, with a lot of opportunities for them, but also potentially some challenges as well to adapt to our countries and especially to Europe. I've prepared some slides about that because I'm an engineer, as you mentioned, Jean-Pierre. An engineer, they love to have slides as well. Not too much text, some numbers, because I am an engineer as well. And the target is that at the end of the presentation we have Q&A, because that is the best if I can listen to you and try to answer and to have an open discussion about your experience and so on. OPmobility. Just some numbers about the company we are talking about. We are a tier 1 supplier. I don't know if you know what it means, tier 1 supplier. It means our customers are the car makers. And we are working for all the car makers in the world, meaning it can be BYD, it can be SAIC, it can be Xiaomi, it can be as well Porsche, it can be Ferrari, it can be General Motors, Jaguar Land Rover. Andrew, I don't forget you as an English guy. That means all the car makers are our customers. We have about 200 customers in the world, and we develop for them, we produce for them. Therefore, we have many factories, 150 factories all around the world, because we are close to them. 40 in China, you mentioned that, Jean-Pierre, before. When we talk about our revenues, 11.6 billion euro, that is about 90 billion RMB. That is the size of the company. We are the leader in exterior solutions. That means the number 1 for bumpers, for tailgates, also number 1 in China. In China, we have 21% market share for that. We have also lighting, and lighting is becoming for sure more and more important, especially in China. The Chinese people like a lot of lighting decoration as well. We produce also modules. That is, modules is the front of the car, basically. Sometimes our customers, they don't want to make the assembly in-house. They prefer to have suppliers like us making one part of the assembly of the car. And then we have also activities in powertrain, fuel tank system, battery, small business in battery assembly, and hydrogen. That is OPmobility in a nutshell in terms of activity technology. Some numbers to reflect that. We produce every year 31 million bumpers. That means it's a lot of bumpers. There are about 85 to 90 million cars being produced worldwide. We produce 31 million bumpers, 1.5 million plastic tailgate, 6 million modules, and 19 million fuel tanks. You see, we are global. We have this mass production, and being global gives us a lot of experience about what's happening in the world in terms of technology, in terms of speed of transformation as well, and in terms of geopolitics also. OPmobility in China. We are in China since 2001. We are pretty successful in China, even if we always need to adapt to the speed of the transformation of the Chinese market. Some numbers, you can see that on the slide. Important for you to know is that a big part of our business is being made with joint venture partner. That was always the model of OPmobility. That means to come here, but also to work closely with some partners. Our biggest joint venture in China is with Yangfeng. I don't know if you know the group Yangfeng. Yangfeng belongs to SAIC. Therefore, we were born in Shanghai as well, like SAIC. And we have a 50-50% joint venture for exterior parts, having 21% of the market for exterior parts in China in many factories. We have another joint venture with Shenergy Group. Shenergy is the biggest energy provider in the Shanghai area for hydrogen vessels, and some factories alone. But that is our footprint in China. We are growing in China, and for sure, the intention is to continue to develop the Chinese market, but also to support our Chinese customers to come to Europe, to come to Brazil, to come to Turkey, and so on, because that is for sure their intention, and we have the footprint for that to support them. Now the question is, why will Chinese automakers go overseas? That's pretty easy to answer, because they want to grow, they want to continue, they have a great technology, but I will give you some more facts on that. First of all, in China, you are the biggest market of the world. That means that 34% of the cars sold globally are made in China. 34%, which is huge. And 50% of the new energy vehicles sold globally are produced in China. New energy vehicle is EV and plug-in hybrid as well, but 50% are being produced in China. Therefore, you have a mass, which is very important when we talk about efficiency, when we talk about competitiveness. The same for the global sales. The percentage in China is 30%. That means also the biggest market in terms of demand is for sure China, and it is still growing. And you have China has fantastic car makers, a mix of traditional, but also newcomers. Some of them coming from the tech also, like Xiaomi or Huawei, and coming now to the mobility and disrupting the market. Therefore, you have also world champion in terms of technology in China. The Chinese market is very competitive and very crowded. Nobody knows how many brands in China, but I would say every second day there is a new brand. We were told yesterday we met Gasgoo. I don't know if you know Gasgoo. The CEO of Gasgoo was with us to share about her view. She's a lady, a very energetic person, about her view in China. And she was mentioning that in China there are 180 new vehicles being launched every year. Every second day there is a new car being launched, which you can see on the street, because you do see every time new brands, new cars, and so on. It just shows the dynamic of the market in China. There is a huge overcapacity, because if you have many brands popping up, plus the old brands, in China, 30 million cars are being produced every year, but there is capacity for 60 million. Therefore, huge competitiveness, a huge price pressure. All the car makers are reducing their prices. 50% of the car makers are losing money. Some of them will die. Some of them will be even stronger. But therefore, the competitiveness of the market in China, in terms of cost, in terms of technology, is huge, much bigger than what we have in Europe, much bigger than what we can have in the US as well. Therefore, it does create worldwide champion being very competitive and much more competitive than what we can have somewhere else, because we all know that competitiveness is always coming from competition and from many players in the field. The Chinese market was for many European customers was very, very successful for decades. You can see here in 2001, only 1 million cars were produced in China. 1 million. In 2013, 18 million. That was a growth rate of 30% a year. That is the time where Volkswagen, GM, all of them, they came to China, they invested in China. The Chinese government was very clever because they forced them to make joint venture. That means also to localize, to bring value, to bring technology. And everybody did benefit from that. Volkswagen, you may know that the Volkswagen Group, 50% of the profit were coming from China. That means the dependency on China was each year more and more important for Volkswagen. They did benefit a lot from that. From 2013 to 2019, that is where Chinese OEMs, standalone OEMs, started to develop. They had learned from the technology coming from Europe, coming from the US, and so on. And we have seen new local brands developing from 2013 to 2019, while the market was not so dynamic in terms of growth, 9% a year. You can see on the slide that in 2019, 5% of the cars being produced in China were new energy vehicle, only 5%, and 29% of the market was for local car makers, Chinese OEMs. That means not the SAIC, Volkswagen, and so on, 29%. In the last 5 years, what we have experienced was just incredible. Nobody could predict that, the speed of this transformation. It's a big challenge for us to adapt. But between 2019 and 2024, the market grew only by 2% a year, which is not as fast as in the past. But the transformation is huge because the Chinese OEMs, their share went up from 29% to 67%. 67% of the car being produced and sold in China are now produced by Chinese car makers. You know, the biggest one is BYD now in China. More than 4 million cars being produced It's more than Volkswagen. It's more than all the others. BYD is growing 20, 30, 40% a year, which is completely crazy. At the same time, Volkswagen, GM, they lost 50, 60, 80% of their volumes. That means a big shift in the car makers because of technology, because of competitiveness, and 43% of the cars being produced in China are new energy vehicles as well. And that means from 2019 to 2024, from 29% share for Chinese OEMs to 67, 5% new energy vehicle to 43%. Normally, it's not possible. For this kind of transformation in an industry like the automotive industry, normally it's about decades. It's about 5 years. It's a big challenge for traditional customers because the Volkswagen, GM, the Japanese OEMs, they are all dying, more or less. And that is also a big challenge for a company like us because we need to adapt to new customers, to different way of working, and we'll come back to that later on. But it's also very exciting because we learn a lot and we can use what we experience in China for the rest of the world. I think for all the companies like OPmobility being present in China, from 2001 to 2013, it was about making money. It was growth. It was good for all of us. Today, it's about innovation and competitiveness. It's different. China is the most competitive market in the world. It's the most innovative market in the world as well for the mobility. Now, what's happening in the rest of the world? What you know, and why we believe that the situation is great for the Chinese automakers, and I'm convinced the Chinese automakers can have a lot of success outside of China as well. We know that there is a huge issue with the global warming, with the CO2 emission, and the transport is responsible worldwide for 25% of the CO2 emission. Therefore, the society needs new solutions. It can be electrification, it can be hydrogen, and so on, to reduce the CO2 emission. And we said before that the 50% of the new energy vehicles are being produced in China. 80% of the battery cell capacity are in China, worldwide. 80%. 50% of the raw material you need to produce a battery are being transformed in China as well. Therefore, China has also can manage the complete value chain you need to make an EV, basically, which is a huge advantage in terms of cost, but also in terms of innovation, in terms of technology. China is very competitive. You know that the people in China, Jean-Pierre, he knows that. I used to say they work much more than in Europe. You mentioned which is not difficult, by the way, to work more than in Europe. When we met yesterday the CEO of SAIC, the big Shanghai company, Gerald Jia, and he was telling us that he had a meeting with some people from Audi, and there was a guy from Audi. He was in Spain in vacation, home office, which is difficult to understand for a Chinese manager what home office means, because is it work or is it leisure? I don't know. But there is a big difference between the intensity of work here in China compared to what we have in Europe. You mentioned, Jean-Pierre, is the 996 or 996. It's 9 in the morning, 9 in the evening, 6 days a week. And I think in Europe it's 9 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon, and 4 days a week. Therefore, there is a huge gap. Energy costs are much cheaper in China, 3 times less than in Europe. Energy costs, plus the value chain, which is being much better managed. I was talking about the battery. That means that all in all, we believe that the production costs of a car in Europe are 30% above the ones in China, which is a huge competitive advantage for the Chinese car makers in China. But if they go overseas, for sure it will be different because they will have to adapt to a different market. People working a bit less, costing a bit more, energy being more expensive. This slide is already too old. We used to say that to develop a car in Europe, it's about 4 years between the moment they start to develop the car and the moment the car is being launched on the market is 4 years. You develop, you make the validation, you invest for the capacity and so on, 4 years. Now the European car makers, they are trying to reduce to 3 years. BYD, 8 months. I was on Tuesday in Shenzhen, BYD. We got nice awards, but they tell us it's efficiency and speed. That means you get the award, I want to produce the car at the end of the year, which is a fantastic challenge, because to go from 4 years to 8 months, it's really a challenge. It's feasible because you work more, you work harder than what we do in Europe. They skip some validation as well. They make much more simulation than validation, and they take more risk also in terms of quality, which is also potentially a risk for BYD when they go overseas, for example, because the quality can be maybe not at the level we have the experience to have. But today, the benchmark in China is 8 months to develop a car, and in Europe, I was mentioning before, it's 4 years for Mercedes. Volkswagen is targeting 3 years. Renault launched a program about 102 weeks, which is about 2 years. Therefore, far away from what we can see in China in terms of speed. China competitiveness is not only about cost efficiency, about speed, it's also about technology. You know that better than I. We have seen with Jean-Pierre as well that WeChat now you can pay with your hand or with your eyes. Well, in Europe, we still have the money. If you don't have cash in Europe, you cannot take a coffee. If you have cash in China, you cannot have a coffee. It's a bit different. Andrew, you confirm? You prefer beer, I know that it's not about. No, but the technology of the cars in China are much more advanced than what we have in Europe today in terms of connectivity. And I'm convinced that one of the reasons why the SAIC Volkswagen, SAIC GM, and so on, they lost traction in China is not because they cannot produce battery. It's because their cars are not connected with the ecosystem the Chinese people want to have compared to a Huawei or to a Xiaomi or BYD and so on. That is the main reason. That is software connectivity. You have champions in China like the companies I mentioned before. We don't have in Europe. I think the only competition you can have in that is with some American car makers like Tesla, potentially tomorrow Google or Amazon, because they will enter as well the mobility. But one of the big advantages of China is not only cost, it's about innovation as well. And we don't like, with Jean-Pierre, when we are in Europe and the people believe the strength of China is only money, subsidies, and so on. No, it's technology. It's technology. Therefore, the Chinese car makers, they have a fantastic opportunity because in terms of technology, you are the best compared to what we have in Europe today. I mean, in terms of connectivity and so on. In terms of EV, the Chinese car makers, they have experience we don't have in Europe in terms of cell manufacturing and so on, and in terms of competitiveness and speed as well. At the same time, as you know, everybody is asking for more EV in the world for the global warming and so on. Therefore, all the conditions are here for the Chinese car makers to be successful outside of China. The challenges are pretty clear. First of all, the good point for China is that China became the biggest exporter of vehicles in the year in 2024. 5 million cars being exported out of China in 2024. It was less than 1 million in 2019. It's also fantastic, the growth of that, from 1 to 5 million. Usually, Japan was the biggest export country of the world, with Toyota and so on. Now China is the first one. Second is Japan. Third one is Germany. Therefore, China is the biggest exporter of cars. The issue is the tariff. Everybody is scared about what's coming from China, about the competition, about the risk for the industry in Europe, or about other topics for the US, and therefore the tariffs are coming, and that will force, for sure, the Chinese OEMs to change their business model and to say, if I want to be successful in Europe, somewhere in North America, not tomorrow, but somewhere in North America or in other countries, I have to be closer, I have to produce there. I have to produce there, and I have also to localize, and that will be also a challenge for the Chinese industry. Is that the countries like Europe, they will impose to the Chinese car makers not only to assemble in Europe, but to also localize some technology. Otherwise, it's not fair, and otherwise also you won't bring the technology from China into Europe. Therefore, China will, Chinese car makers will have to adapt to these new rules, meaning I come to Europe, I produce in Europe, I have to localize in Europe, like we did, if I say we, for the European car makers some years ago to come to China. The consumers in Europe are completely different than the consumers in China. I don't know if you know the average age of somebody buying a new car in Europe. In Europe, it's close to 60. Yes, new cars. Buyer in Europe, average age is between 55 and 60. Maybe you check on ChatGPT, I don't know, but it's... No, but really, it's between 55 and 60 years old, depending on the country. That is the average age of people buying a new car in Europe. The car is expensive. In Europe, young people that don't have money, it's not like in China, and therefore it's 55 to 60. In China, it's 20 years less. That means younger people, much more connected people, and the reason to choose a car is not the same if you are 40 years old, you are Chinese, or if you are 60 years old and you are English. You are not 60 years old, but you are English, Andrew. No, and therefore they will also have to adapt to what the consumers in Europe want to buy in terms of product. And these are not the same strengths and the same reason to choose a car in Europe than in China. Therefore, they have to adapt. They will do it, but they will have to adapt as well. No, they don't buy for the same reasons. Another topic which is important for European consumers is dealership. You have an issue, you go to the garage, they can repair and so on. You entertain a relationship with the people which is based on trust, on experience and so on. People in Europe are pretty loyal to their brands, not because they like the brand, but because the small dealer is close to their home. Renault has 500 to 600 dealers in France, BYD 50. Therefore, if they want to beat Renault, it's normal they will have also to come closer. The system you can have in China or Tesla is having, where you buy your car on internet and you don't see the dealer, doesn't apply to countries like France or Germany. The people, they want to see the car before, they want to sit in the car before, they want to try the car before. We are all countries compared to China. While in China, or Tesla is the same, you order the car on internet and that's okay as well. Therefore also, they will have to build the infrastructure in terms of dealership if they want to attract the people long term for service, for this trust, for this relationship, which is very important for European. Because China is so strong, Europeans have to adapt as well. And I show you a picture of a car which is not nice, but we produce the bumpers. Therefore, I do hope they will have success. No, it's a new Citroën being launched in Eastern Europe right now for 25,000 euros, which is pretty cheap for Europe, full EV. And you may know that Stellantis, which is the mother company of Citroën, is having now a joint venture with Leapmotor. That means the European companies, they do recognize that the Chinese ones are more competitive. And now they start to make joint venture to support them to be successful in their home market. It's not like in the past where they came to China by having joint venture to benefit from the growth of the market. Now it's about I collaborate with Chinese to become more competitive in my home market. That is what Stellantis is doing with Leapmotor, to invite Leapmotor to Europe, to produce in Europe, but also to learn, to utilize some components, the battery and so on, to be more competitive. Renault, another French company, decided to develop their new small car in China. They produce that in Europe, but they develop in China because only 2 years development time compared to 4 years in Europe. People more efficient, less costly, therefore for them more competitive as well. Volkswagen decided to let their Chinese team developing the software of their new vehicles. It's even SAIC people developing the software of the new Volkswagen being launched in China, but also the software will be used in Europe as well. Competitiveness. And therefore, that is this the awareness that the Chinese car makers, the technology is becoming better than what we have in Europe. And now it's being, for the OEMs, it's about using the experience or the technology of the Chinese to be more competitive in their home market. Therefore, the difference between the competitiveness of Chinese car makers and European will decrease because they will learn from the Chinese car makers. The conclusion is China is a very exciting market. As I mentioned before, it was a market driven by growth in the past. Now it's a market driven by technology. It's a market which is being disrupted like not other market in the world. It's really fantastic and exciting what's happening here. Every time we come here, we do discover new technologies, new players, and it's incredible. Europe and other countries, they need the Chinese technology because it's about decarbonation, but it's also about having solution which is affordable. We tend to forget that sometimes. We focus on CO2 emission, but if it's not affordable, it doesn't work as well, and that is exactly what China is able to develop. Therefore, the conditions are really here for the Chinese car makers to be successful outside of China. The risk, the challenges is when they come to Europe, they will have to produce with the same rules that what we have in Europe. In France, we work only 35 hours a week. We have 6 weeks vacation. If we don't get a salary increase, we strike. And Jean-Pierre, you know that as well. No, but he doesn't strike, Jean-Pierre. No, a lot of overtime. No, but they will have to I would say to fight against the competition in Europe with the same rules, which is normal. And I'm sure they will be successful because first of all they are aware about that. And what we believe we will see is that the Chinese car makers, they will use experience from companies like OPmobility. SAIC will come to Morocco, and potentially they will work with us because we have already 3 factories in Morocco. They can benefit from our experience in Morocco. They can benefit from the investment we made in the past in terms of competitiveness. And we are convinced in the next 20 years there will be more and more Chinese car makers coming to Europe, to other countries, and they will use as well the experience of the European, for example, suppliers, and it will be a win-win situation. It will be well balanced, and that is what we are trying to develop at OPmobility. That was about my presentation about the Chinese market, about the opportunities and challenges for Chinese players in China, outside of China. And for us, the target is to win in any scenario. That means we win if the Chinese market is developing fast. We win as well if the Chinese are coming to Europe because we have capacity all over the world. And I think that is really something which is making us different. Thank you very much for your attention.
No, thank you, Laurent. Just to tell you that, and of course you can't know this, is we had, because we work with many of these customers and brands here at CEIBS that you mentioned. We had here recently, just where you are standing, Giuseppe Cataneo, who's the CEO for China of Ferrari. We have made the same visits with them because they don't see everything from Maranello, and they went to BYD and then Porsche, and of course it's incredible that what you said is so true. Innovation is a key element.
Innovation and speed of innovation as well.
Yes, the speed, the agility, and as you said also, you haven't got the same factors like labor force, social laws and legal aspects. So all of this play both ways. So when the Chinese brands will be getting into other markets, they need to know that if you have your employees working too much, as an employer, you may even go to jail. And you can have a lawsuit. Be careful with that.
Yes, so, and also if you I mean, I think if you manage a company in China, it's not Not everything is easy, but it's much easier than if you are in Germany, for example. If you are in Germany and you want to move a machine from one part of the factory to another one, you have to negotiate with the unions, you have to explain what will happen and so on. The same for the office. If you change tomorrow the chairs in the office, they can complain. Therefore, right. It has to be discussed, it has to be, therefore the speed is completely different. And these are rules, as you mentioned, Frank, yes. and everybody has to cope with that.
And just, again, on behalf of the school, before we go into the Q&A, and maybe distinguished Professor Jean-Pierre Raffarin is going to take you into other considerations. A big thank you, because I think it wasn't an easy exercise exactly to show how China has been developing fast, the new nature of the relationships for international companies coming to the Chinese market, and as you said, also technology going with it. I think it's a mix for me of a strategy, marketing, and supply chain operations performance that you've been doing here. Just for your good information, maybe raise your hands if you can tell us if you're coming from the automotive sector or a provider or related to this, so that Laurent can spot some people. Oh, a very significant number of people. That's good experts, and that's good. So I invite everybody to be interacting. And maybe you open the fire and set the fire for the question time, Mr. Distinguished Prof.
Don't worry. You know, I love America. You know, I love Mr. Trump. I'm very confident in this good guy. Yeah.
Jean-Pierre is being recorded. Huh?
No, don't worry.
Never mind. I have made my proof. And I would like to know what you think about Elon Musk and Tesla.
Ah, that is an excellent question.
Because, you know, there is some tension between China and USA, but this beautiful car, Tesla, is made in China. We have visited together the plant in Shanghai. It was very fantastic. So in this period, very dangerous, very nervous, what do you think about this product and this future?
You want me to talk about Elon Musk or about Tesla?
About Tesla.
About Tesla. No, but we can talk about it. First of all, Tesla is a very good customer of us. And by definition, we love our customers. And we are in China for them. We have a factory or two factories in Lingang for Tesla here, for the Model Y and everything they produce. But we have also set up in the US. We have a factory in Austin, Texas. That is where also they do produce the Model Y, where they do produce the Cybertruck as well. I don't know if you have seen the Cybertruck, the very strange car. You were talking about Trump the other day. Trump said that he has a lot of imagination, but even Donald Trump, he couldn't have imagined such a car. You can imagine what you were saying. And that is also Austin, is also the factory where Tesla is going to produce the robotaxi starting next year. And we are very engaged with them for the robotaxi. And that is my way to answer your question. Jean-Pierre, is to say, I admire a lot Tesla for what they have been doing in the last 10 years, because they have been disrupting as well the market. I believe as well they did inspire as well many new car makers in China, because they don't come from the automotive industry, they come much more from the tech and software industry. And Tesla, you know that, it's also the Gerald Jia, the CEO of SAIC, he told us it's a phone on wheel, basically. And they were the first one bringing cars which are completely different with a big screen. All the new Chinese car makers have a big screen in the car. They were the first car being very connected with your ecosystem, very fast, where you have the software update over the air. Now it's standard in China, but the first one was Tesla. Therefore, they have been disrupting completely the automotive industry. And the robotaxi is also what we do see in China. You will have the same. It is potentially the next step in the mobility, being fully autonomous and changing completely the mobility, especially in big cities where we all struggle with too many cars or too much traffic jam and so on. Therefore, Tesla, for me, a great company. I think their biggest asset is Elon Musk, and the biggest risk is Elon Musk. And today is potentially a big risk. That is what we do see. First of all, because he doesn't spend enough time for Tesla. He spends time for other things which are not always very positive. And the second topic is, and you know, those kind of companies, they depend, you were talking about leadership, those kind of companies like Tesla, they depend a lot on the boss, on the founder. And Elon was spending a lot of time to develop Tesla, to take decisions and so on. And even if they have a fantastic team, a lot of decisions have been taken by Elon Musk as well. Also for us, when we are in Austin, we produce the bumpers. It's Elon deciding if they have the bumper in-house or with OPmobility. There are a lot of things were with him. And he was the bottleneck, but also the accelerator. And now he doesn't have the time. Plus the image of Tesla was very linked to Elon Musk. It's a bit Xiaomi. You have the same Xiaomi with the CEO of Xiaomi, who is a big part of the success of Xiaomi as well. And now the image of Elon Musk is becoming worse and worse, especially in some parts in the US, but also in Europe, which can have a negative impact on Tesla as well. At the end, I believe the people, they forget very fast if tomorrow he leaves the government, because once he will disagree with Trump. By definition, they cannot agree for a long time. Therefore, they will have a dispute. And then it will be good for us potentially to have a dispute with Trump. And if they bring good products, they can be back on track. But I have a lot of respect for what they are doing, Tesla.
Just say if you want, if you're in the automotive, what you're doing, and so that he has a big of a background. And
he is in the automotive.
Yeah, I'm in automotive for 15 years, working in interiors and in chassis. For luxury car making and for tier 1 as well. Yeah. So we have been talking about like 30, 40 years ago, Chinese government was forcing the Western OEM making JV here in China. No? Now we have Chinese OEM going to Europe or somewhere else. What would you suggest to the European Union, for example?
We have discussion with the European Union, you can imagine, and for sure we have a different perspective of our customers in Europe. The car makers in Europe, they would like to avoid the Chinese to come to produce in Europe because it's competition. We like the idea that they come to Europe, the Chinese car makers, because they are our customers in China as well. But what we try to do with the European Commission is to convince them that it can be only a benefit for Europe if they really localize. That means it's what the US is doing. You know that if you want to avoid taxes in the US, you need to have at least 75% of the added value being localized in the US. And that is what we are trying to do with Europe. And I think that is what is going to happen. Meaning that Europe will open the doors, will potentially give subsidies as well to the Chinese car makers, for example, if they bring a certain added value to Europe, which I believe is good for everybody at the end, because that is the best way also for Europe to remain competitive. Because the Chinese car makers are very clever, what are they doing? They go to Morocco, close to Europe, free trade with Europe, no tax, no tariff. They go to Turkey and so on. They try to find a way not to be forced to invest if they don't want to invest. What will happen, I don't know, but that will be, I believe, the discussion in the coming years is really to make sure that they do in Europe what we have done in China, meaning also not only to assemble but to produce.
He's a well-known specialist in the automobile industry. He doesn't tell us, but well done. Oops. You were first.
So I'm also in the automotive industry. So we are doing adhesives for tier 1 and tier 2. So we are your supplier globally. We are bonding your tailgate and now your headlamps.
And you are too expensive and not fast enough.
Well, and that's my question: is how to be fast? How do you succeed to do 8 months in China? How do you do it in a GV? How do you do it by yourself? You know, for us, we are also supplying BYD with adhesive, so it's also a big challenge. But maybe you also have some lessons learned with Yanfeng and by yourself in your project here in China.
No, frankly speaking, it's a challenge because the biggest challenge is the mindset of the team. It's not the technology, it's not the processes and so on. I mean, for sure, we are working on streamlining our processes, on using more digital tools, artificial intelligence. For sure, it can help you to develop much faster, to make much more simulation. But I think at the end, it's not a question of process tool, it's a question of people, mindset, fast decision taking. And for us, the bottlenecks are our internal processes to approve capex investment, to validate design, and so on and so on. If you take all these gates and every time you have a kind of commission, a kind of steering committee, or I don't know what, you kill the project. Therefore, it's empowering the teams. I think it's really key. Small teams, empowered, and giving them the authority to take decision. A joint venture is potentially a topic, an issue for that, for us, because the governance of a joint venture is by definition not agile. You have two shareholders, and even if they globally agree, they potentially disagree on a lot of topics. That is what we do experience with Yanfeng right now. It is easier for us to manage a project without a partner than with a partner. And the next challenge for us, for the Yanfeng PO, the biggest joint venture we have, where we have 27 factories, the leader in exterior parts, is to review completely the governance of the joint venture. Because if we build a new factory, it has to be approved by the board. We have 4 boards a year. Every 3 months, if you need to build up a factory and you need already 3 months just to meet the next time, you are dead. Therefore, also for the Yanfeng PO joint venture, it will be about empowering much more the management team and letting them work to be fast. Standalone is easier. It's empowering the people. But I don't have the perfect recipe. That is what we discussed with Jean-Pierre also, because we had a meeting with our teams today. And the biggest question for me is the leaders who have been successful in the past, can they adapt to the new world and can be successful today? I'm not sure. It's a question of attitude and curiosity. And we do see that we had fantastic experts being leaders in some fields. They will struggle to adapt to a BYD asking for speed and fast decision and so on. That will be the question. Enjoy the spicy food of Chongqing.
And I'll be back.
That so to say is better suited to serve your Chinese customers here in the Chinese market, for instance?
No, I think
get the best of both.
Yeah, I think I mean, first of all, attitude. What we are doing at OPmobility is 2 years ago we redefined our leadership model. You know what is important for a leader in such a market, which is different than 5 years ago, the market. And we have been trained 7,000 manager, engineers, and so on in the company, putting a lot of focus on speed, on taking decision, leading with ambiguity, because the world is uncertain and you have to take decision. And engineers, they like to take decision if they are sure. You know, they don't take decision at the end. If you are sure, you don't decide. It's an evidence. Therefore, we are trying to really develop them to be more empowered and to take decision and to adapt our processes. That is on paper. In reality, is a bit more difficult. China, for China, is what I was mentioning before. is really to push our teams for a BYD to take fast decision, to change the processes, to really to have more to be more empowered, and not to have this steering committee and so on. What will be for us the next challenge is for outside of China. Because if you are in France or in Germany, you cannot impose to the people to work the Saturday. If they work Saturday, they have two days off and so on. Therefore, I believe what will happen, which is the future revolution in the automotive industry, is that we will see more and more car makers or T1 suppliers leaving partially Europe and developing cars also for Europe in China or in India. Not only for cost reason, but also for speed reason. And that is at least what we are assessing more and more, is to say if we want to be competitive in Europe, if we want to develop cars very fast in Europe, also with Chinese car makers or others, it won't work with the regulation we have in Europe, and we will have to move a lot of skills, competencies from Europe to China or to India or to other countries, not only because of cost reason, also because of speed reason.
So, sorry, another quick follow-up question. So, if we would have, let's say, fair global economy without trade barriers, no tariffs, do you think that the West would still have an domestic automotive industry in 10 years from now on, in the light of the Chinese competition?
Good question. I don't know. I think yes. Because I believe first of all, I don't like trade barrier, because it's stupid. If you protect yourself, it's because you feel weak. And tariff is just because you want to protect, but it doesn't change the fact that the European market is struggling a lot right now because the cars are too expensive. The EV cars are too expensive. The people cannot afford that, and they don't buy cars, and therefore the car production is going down 20-25%. It's not because we put tariff that the cars are getting less expensive for the consumers. Therefore, we don't solve the problem. We protect ourselves, but middle long term we are killing the industry basically. Therefore, we prefer open borders for that. I think if there is no tariff, the European OEMs, they will be forced to react in terms of being protected. They will act, and I think they have strong assets as well. Therefore, I don't believe the Chinese OEMs in 10 years would have 100% of the European market share, or the European market. Maybe 10, 20, 30%, which is already enough to disturb completely the market. But it's only with competition that you work on your efficiency and that you develop yourself. And therefore, protecting and closing the borders is never a good solution for the long-term competitiveness.
But does this mean that the Western politicians are basically wrong?
Yes.
Okay.
But since many years.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
No, it's not you, but not really, because they are afraid, they are scared.
Sure.
And because they are scared, they do things which are sometimes on short term. It makes sense to put 35% tariff on the SAIC EV, but middle term, you don't solve the issue of competitiveness. Energy costs are too high in Europe, that's an issue. Labor costs are too high in Europe, that's an issue as well. We are not able to produce batteries in Europe, that's an issue. I mean, you don't solve it by putting a tariff with the Chinese car makers. Therefore, for sure, we need to make sure that there is a fair competition with the same condition for everybody. And it will be better also for the European market and for the consumption in Europe, and then for the growth in Europe. And because you have seen that Europe, compared to the other regions of the world, is struggling in terms of growth, it's just because of too many regulation. And regulation is always killing the economy. You give the feeling to protect, but middle long term, you kill the economy and also you kill the innovation.
And they don't travel enough internationally.
Yeah.
Who was first?
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Chris. I work for Autoform, Swiss software company in automotive. So basically, our software platform makes OEMs faster to launch models faster. So we share a lot of customers, I guess. And maybe offline, we can continue the discussion about speed in China, because I love the topic. That's great. For you, I'm really curious about, basically Chinese OEMs going to Europe, because you have some experience there, and that's really fresh topic. So if you would be, I don't know, Cherry or Xiaomi, and you want to enter the European market, how would you do that? What would be your game plan or some tips? I don't know.
Game plan to do that. I mean, they are doing that already, and they are very clever. I mean, BYD is very strong also in advertising in Europe. When you see a Formula One race, there is always BYD behind. Therefore, it's also the image. I think the image is very important of the company, the branding. I think it's very important. I think SAIC is very clever to do it with MG. Because for many people, MG is still an English company. No, but it's also important in terms of perception. I think as well to produce in Europe is very important for some European consumers. You know, Toyota is very successful since many years in Europe. Because everybody knows they produce as well in Europe. Therefore, in terms of being accepted by the consumer and not being the one disrupting jobs and so on is also, I think, important. Therefore, for me, it's a mix of branding, advertising, I think a cool image as well, differentiating. If you compete against Citroën with similar cars, it's not so sexy. If you bring something they don't have, a big screen, connectivity, I don't know what, then you bring more value to the market, like Tesla did as well, very successfully in Europe. And also producing in Europe because it's getting better accepted by the population.
So, thank you for the chance. I'm working also for the tier 1 supplier. We are providing the glass as a French company also as you. So my question is, as a French company, how do you handle the innovation versus the robustness of the product, maturity? And also, how do you handle the innovation in Europe, developed in Europe? And also the quick and changing innovation needs in China.
The good point is that we are facing the same issues apparently. Yeah? That means innovation, robustness, and innovation in Europe. No, I mean, I will start with innovation in Europe. I think we have to recognize that since 10 years, there is not one innovation in the automotive industry coming from Europe. I don't know one since 10 years. If you have an example of an innovation in the automotive industry coming from Europe in the last 10 years, I don't know. 20 years ago, yes, I can give you a lot, but since 10 years, no. Innovation are coming either from Chinese or are coming from American companies like Tesla. In the way to design, the way to produce, in technology is really coming from. Therefore, innovation in Europe for us is not where we want to innovate anymore. Because the industry is not asking for, I mean, they are not the players like you have in China or like you have in the US, being very innovative. Tech companies are not in Europe. There is not one phone producer in Europe. Apple, Xiaomi, or Huawei, and so on, Chinese or American company. Therefore, we are going more and more to US or to China for innovation. Collaboration with universities, collaboration with, in the US, we have a collaboration with the MIT, which is a nice institute in Boston, for example. Therefore, we are trying to find partners, mostly in the US and mostly in China, to boost our innovation, because in Europe, unfortunately, there is not a lot of innovation. That is the first topic. Innovation and robustness. I think also we have to recognize that I would say the newcomers, for them, the time to market is more important than the quality of the product. Very fast because time to market, and that is something we are struggling in Europe because we have our processes, because we don't want to launch anything if it's not 100% proof, and we can be only successful if we develop innovation in China and develop innovation in the US with a different spirit. Therefore, the recipe for that is not in Europe, outside of Europe.
Laurent, I mean, I'm from investments, so from Indonesia. So I'm just curious, with all weaknesses that you mentioned from the European side, how does your company strive and doing very well in China? Because you have to compete with the local Chinese. You say Chinese have all the greatness, speed, innovation, and so on, but your company survive here and thrive, doing very well. How do you do that?
Well, we hope we are doing better than surviving, because surviving is a question of time and then you die. Normally, if you survive, it's no, but I know, frankly speaking, I think it's a big challenge for all of us. We are very lucky to have strong partners as well, and to be here since many years. There is a kind of trust as well. Therefore, we learn. They learn from us as well. We still try always to bring more technology and so on. I was mentioning the joint venture YFPO. We have for bumpers, tailgates, and so on. The joint venture is only focused on bumper tailgates, but we have also other activities in Europe, like lighting system. We are bringing that to the joint venture to give more content and to support the joint venture to be better. Therefore, it has to be a win-win situation. I think the support of Jean-Pierre Raffarin is also important. Yesterday, we were with the boss of the SASAC in Shanghai as well. They are supporting us as well, because it's a long-term, trustful relationship. Therefore, it's a mix of being close to the management of our joint venture partner. Like I come pretty often here, and we have a close relationship, being supported as well by somebody like Jean-Pierre Raffarin, and always trying to be open-minded, to adapt of we're working in China and not to try to copy-paste to what we are doing in Europe. But it's a challenge.
Being in Asia, you do work different times, for sure. I'll have a call at 10, 11 o'clock with my boss, because that's how it works. So you have to be adaptive, and I think Laurent's point about adapting to the situation and the circumstances you find is very relevant. Okay, so I particularly enjoy working in Asia, but for sure, adaptivity is a key part of being successful in Asia and China. Full stop.
Otherwise, we won't be here for very long. You just do your assignment and go elsewhere.
And you will be starting to survive.
No, but the question I have to you as well is, do you believe that this 996 is sustainable in China also with a new generation? Or
less and less.
I think less and less as well.
Less and less, yeah. There is a marginal return is decreasing for sure.
Yeah, I believe as well. For younger people, it's not the same like some years ago. Therefore, it can change a bit as well, which is good for everybody.
That's why, as like a software developer, you're pretty much considered done when you're 30. Yeah. It's like you're unemployable after 30, pretty much.
Yes.
So, Laurent, what would you call your core competitiveness in China then?
Sorry?
What is your core competitiveness in China market right now?
Our core competitiveness?
Yeah.
What do you mean exactly?
Well, I mean, so many Chinese players competing with you guys, right, in the market. So you mentioned you bring in new technology, but within like your main business, bread and butter, what is your core competitiveness competing with the local Chinese players?
Your success factors.
Yeah, your success factors.
Uniqueness. USP.
Yeah, it's also a good question. At the end, everything is about people. No? Technology, we buy the same machine, we buy the same material, we buy and so on. You know what? Everybody's about. No, really, it's only about people.
It's good to hear from an engineer.
No, but it's like that. I mean, you compete against other companies, but we are all using the same material, the same and so on. Therefore, it's people, it's mindset, it's trust. Again, collaboration with our joint venture partner, which is a good mix between a Chinese culture but also a European culture. I think diversity is always something bringing new ideas, new values. And if the diversity works good, and if you empower your people, normally good things happen.
Thank you for the straightforward presentation and the open discussion. Very much appreciated from French people. I am serving the automotive industry, both OEM and tier 1, tier 2 suppliers. So I have two questions. You have a sizable organization with high capex. How do you manage that? What's your greatest challenge today? In China, let's focus in China. And the second question is, you mentioned about people mindset. Now, how do you achieve that transformation within your workforce? And do you see that as we are developing technology and products from China for global business, we can also export in the future Chinese management approach to be mixed more with Europeans so that they can start to be more adaptable? Just one comment, in the past 20, 30 years, Chinese people have been very much accustomed to multinational and the way of thinking, and they know much better Germans and French and British and so forth. But Europeans, my impression so far is that they still very little know about Chinese culture and way of doing things. So is there any maybe strategy that you bring or groom Chinese managers to go to Europe and bring that speed and innovation and adaptability to the European teams?
Apart from CEIBS, of course.
Sorry?
From CEIBS, because this is what we do every day, or trying to do.
No, the biggest, I mean, the first question was biggest challenge in China, right, is the speed of the transformation of the market, not in terms of technology, but customers. Because what did happen in the last 5 years, we didn't anticipate. I think we have to be humble, all of us. Nobody could think 5 years ago that BYD would be so successful so fast. Nobody could think 5 years ago that Xiaomi will launch cars and be not able to produce enough for the demand. Therefore, what is happening is really, I would say, brutal in terms of speed. And that is our biggest challenge, is to adapt our team to new customers working differently. It's not capex. It's not for sure. We need to close plants to open other plants for different locations, but that's not a challenge. That's something we need to do anyway. It's easy to take those decisions. The biggest challenge is really people adapt our organization skills, and sometimes we have people that are not able to do it. It's not because you are successful with Mercedes that you can be successful with BYD in your way of working as well. That's the biggest challenge we have. Transformation, you mentioned leadership transformation. What we are trying to do when we talk about our strategy, we try to make always on paper, because in reality it's always more difficult. Now, a good mix about what we have to do in terms of strategy, product, geography, and so on, and how to do it in terms of leadership. Therefore, we measure more and more the what and the how. And the how, that is what I mentioned before, that is the leadership model we have been developing, the training for the people, the assessment of the skills of the people, the support of the people to adapt to a new world where you need to be more open, more curious. You need to be able to collaborate as well, much more. If you want to go fast on the market, you need to find partners for that. If you want to de-risk, take less risk for the company because nobody knows what will happen, you have also to work with partners. Therefore, we are spending a lot of time. And in two weeks' time, we have our leadership meeting, the yearly one with the top 100, and we will spend 80% of the time on leadership, 20% on strategy and so on, 80% on leadership, because at the end, everything is about people. It's not about the challenge is not capex, the challenge is not technology. It's much more people for us, because they are not used to work like we need to work today. The automotive industry was in the last 50 years, it was always predictable, always the same customers, no disruption in technology. In Europe, after the Golf 1, you had the Golf 2 and the Golf 3 and the Golf 4. It was similar design with Volkswagen. Yeah, everything was. And then the automotive industry became a benchmark in terms of continuous improvement, because you always do the things and you do it better. In terms of global supply chain, just in time, everything is perfect. And then the COVID happened, newcomers are happening, supply chain are being disrupted, new models are being launched, uncertainty on volumes, and the people, they have to act completely differently. It cannot be process-based. It has to be much more leadership and agility-based, which is a big revolution. Therefore, that is my biggest challenge with the team, is that the awareness, curiosity, and so on. And that's even more a challenge for a European company, because a big part of our staff is in Europe, and they don't see what's happening right now in China, or what's potentially happen as well in the US with Tesla, Rivian, and Waymo, and so on. And if they realize too late, then it can be very painful for the company. That is the biggest challenge. Your third question, I don't remember what it was.
No third question, but I just read that the BYD is opening in Zhengzhou a new factory that is 10 times bigger than the gigafactory of Tesla. So you could imagine what is coming from China.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, if you like technology and so on, I like it. I think at the end it's good for everybody. Huh? If mobility is developing, if more cars are being produced, I'm happy. Huh? I don't care who is producing the cars. If it's affordable. I mean, the biggest issue we have in Europe today is since the European Commission is pushing for full EV, and the technology is not good enough in Europe, and the costs are too high, the people don't buy cars. That means the average age of a car in Europe is 12 years old. Therefore, the CO2 consumption is not reducing in Europe. It's flattish. Huh? And less cars are being produced. And that's bad for the economy, and that's bad for the planet. And there is a good solution to mix affordability and CO2 emission. We are happy, no matter if it comes from China, US, or Europe.
And one last comment, you know that the demographics play a lot of, factor about the future strategy. If the demographics in Europe is reducing dramatically, and also in China, do we need so many brands and cars? And maybe it's better that we don't produce that many.
No. What I'm convinced about, I mean, India is growing and other countries are growing in terms of demography. But what I'm convinced is that in 10 years, there won't be more cars being produced than now. Maybe less. Because you will have autonomous driving, car sharing, but mobility will continue to develop. People they need to move. Therefore, you will have different kind of mobilities developing. It can be micro mobility, last mile mobility, transport of goods will continue to develop because people, if they are in the big cities, they still need to eat. I don't know what, and therefore you need to transport that. And therefore, for us, it's also a challenge not only to be in the passenger car business, but to be in all kind of mobility. Because we believe the passenger car business is plateauing, and in 10 years, I mean, you see Shanghai, you cannot have 50% more cars in Shanghai. It doesn't work. Huh? And therefore, different kind of mobility will develop.
Hi, Laurent. Thanks for the excellent presentation. And I'm also in investments, and we did make lots of investment from like cars and batteries and suspensions and the whole supply chain of the car industry. So I'm very curious, like you have mentioned, the Chinese car companies are already taking steps to go overseas. And also the localized production is quite a kind of like a must for them, given the the tariffs potential impacts from that given by US and Europe. But there are quite a lot of like different countries for them to make plans. So my question is that what are the key factors for the Chinese car companies to choose, like the market size or the price gap between the oil and the electricity, or the infrastructure material level, for example, like charging points or other factors I haven't mentioned here? Because I think that's one kind of thing we've been talking with the car companies here in China and how they
choose which country they need to
localize the production. Yeah, because you have like Hungary or Mexico or other countries.
Well, I think it's a difficult question, that, huh? Because I can tell you which country not to choose. No, but at the end, it's about competitive. No, but it's about competitiveness, and competitiveness. It's always a mix of cost, labor cost, energy cost, but also skills and availability of skills. I mean, you have Hungary is very competitive in terms of labor cost and tax, but it's extremely difficult to find people and skilled people because many car makers are already here. Therefore, the volatility of the workforce is huge in Hungary as well. Therefore, you have to find the right mix between I would say economical factor, but also having the right skills and availability of people.
And the image in other European countries.
I think SAIC will go to Morocco which is not Europe, I think is very smart. Because Morocco, the demography is very dynamic. You have a lot of young, very skilled people, no issue on that, very competitive in tax. The stability in terms of politics as well, because there is a king. You have a king in China, they have a king in Morocco. Is similar. No, but stability is also very important. Therefore, those kind of countries are a very good choice. Countries like Germany, they are not competitive anymore. Energy is very costly. Labor costs are very high. Absenteeism in Germany is 7% in our factories, 7%, which is crazy. Huh? Therefore, the competitiveness is not here anymore.
Thank you for your sharing. So we know that ESG is always, how can I say, Europe is always a pioneer of ESG topic. So I think that might be one big reason for the European Union to set the great target of full electrification in 2035, if I'm correct. So, but today, if I read the news, I see many pushback and many close down of the plants for the EVs from Audi, from Stellantis, etc. So, can I understand that the Europe is doubting, the future paths of the automotive industry? If yes, is there any alternative technology or energy that Europe can take advantage of? If no, China is a king for the EV sector now. What collaboration model do you think is most beneficial for Europe, like Stellantis with Nimpo Auto, or whatever? That's my question. Thank you.
Yes, no, I think first of all, if we want to achieve the carbon neutrality, if we want to decarbonate, it will be all about innovation. If you want to foster innovation, you don't have to regulate too much. Because then innovation is based on openness, basically. Huh? You have to give very aggressive targets, but you have to let the people, the engineers, the companies, the scientific finding the right solution. And what did Europe probably not so good is they want to be carbon neutral in 2050. And they say, if I want to be carbon neutral in 2050, as we need 15 years to replace all the cars in Europe, we need to produce and to sell only zero emission car in 2035. And then they gave more or less the obligation to go to battery, which Europe is not good at. Huh? But therefore, you stop innovation because it's already decided. And now, after some years, they do see that the market is going down, that the people don't buy new cars because they are too expensive, and so on and so forth. And they observe what's happening outside of Europe. And I think China is becoming a kind of role model as well for Europe, because in China, the way the government did act was, first of all, to define new energy vehicle, which is a mix between full EV and hybrid, to encourage people to buy those cars, but not to force or to ban the other cars as well. And therefore, it's really to encourage innovation. And what's happening now in China? China became the biggest producer of hybrid cars, BYD. Developed the range extender technology, which is very efficient because you can combine people, they will drive potentially 90% full electric, and if they have an issue with the range and so on, they consume a bit fuel, and then they are free for the range. And therefore, I believe that's what Europe is going to do, is to open a bit more to different technologies, and potentially the range extender or the hybrid, if there is a certain range for the battery. And they have to recognize that China became the champion in that, but they are all launching those kind of technologies now.
Thank you for a great presentation. I'm Sophia from CEIBS MBA. I'm wondering, because you have mentioned that nowadays many Chinese automakers have already started in a price war. Besides the overseas, in your opinion, are there any other ways that they can get out of this price war?
In China? Price war, it depends on you. Huh? You want to buy a car cheaper, and then it's always coming from the consumer, the price war. No?
Yeah, but from the automaker's perspective, are there any ways to, differentiate or like some way to get out of the war? Just pricing
For the
wars?
OEMs. Yeah, started, but now they are not playing the game anymore with the price war. Huh? They started the price war, which is unique. BYD is very competitive in price war. Huh? It's pushing hard on everybody. At the end, if you want to differentiate, I think they will have to offer a different business model. I think that is the next step if they want to go out of the price war, is to offer potentially mobility as a service instead of selling a car. Selling a car, I think today is really difficult to differentiate, because if you see all the brands you have in China with great technology, similar technology at the end, similar battery technology and so on, difficult to differentiate. The branding, the marketing and so on. But I think the next step for them is to try to provide mobility as a service, where you different business model. Yes, but also different business model. I believe a lot in mobility as a service. You don't buy the car anymore. You use what you need when you want and so on.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Favre. I'm Daniel. I spent most of my career in Renault and Valeo. Now I'm in aftermarket business. I appreciate your comment about the challenge for Chinese automakers going outside China, which is the services, aftermarket services. They can make great product, competitive product, if there is no people at local level to sustain the services and repair the car at right time, at right price. It's impossible to succeed. So my question is about the trend today for Chinese automakers making as much as possible the components internally. This is the trend, and at the same time, we see thousands of BYD cars blocked at Belgium harbor because of IP issue. How do you see the strategy of car automakers in Europe or in other countries if they are choose to continue to produce internally their components?
I mean, BYD is producing internally their components, but it's not the case of all Chinese automakers. I mean, if we work with BYD, for sure, they make their bumpers, their lighting, electronic components, wiring, and so on. But it's a kind of unique business model. We work with Xiaomi, with Leap Motors, they are working, I would say normally, they are very challenging in terms of speed, but they outsource like other car makers. Therefore, the model BYD is a kind of unique model.
But
when they go overseas, what we know is they potentially will change their business model as well to rely on local players, because I think they recognize that. I mean, we just got 2 awards from BYD this week, one for Turkey, one for Indonesia, because we have already footprint, we have already capex. We know how to face different social environment and so on. Therefore, I believe they will adapt, because they are very clever. They will adapt to market they don't know so good. It's about being accepted, but it's also limiting the risk. I think they will do that. The other car makers, I don't believe that the insourcing for the car makers is the trend for the future. Because if you project to the future, if you believe the car will be autonomous once, their added value is not to produce bumpers or to produce chassis. Their added value is to provide the right software and the right service to you. And I think they will insist a lot on that. When we are working with Tesla, they want to outsource everything. They want to assemble very fast the car and to be the service provider and the mobility provider. Therefore, I don't believe long term that there will be a strong insourcing. Short term, sometimes, if they have capacity and so on. Long term, I don't believe.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Mr. Laurent. So I actually have a question about the challenge that you mentioned earlier about the import tax, and I really want to ask that because I was educated in Canada, and in Canada right now they have 100% of the import tax on the EV coming from China And on the other hand, I think the Canadians, I mean, they're not very, they're having a trade war with the United States right now. So potentially it would be a good time for the EV makers right now to enter the market of Canada because, Tesla is no longer their best choice. And facing this kind of circumstances, what do you think is the potential solution for the Chinese car makers to enter the Canadian market? Maybe this is a good chance, I guess.
Yes, that's. I'm not Donald Trump, and because he's. No, I believe Donald Trump is putting a lot of pressure on Canada and Mexico because he wants to make sure that the Chinese EV makers they don't come to Canada and Mexico. That's his target because he's putting tariff and so on. You know that BYD wants to go to Mexico, that Chery wants to go to Mexico and so on to be in the not for the US market, but for the Mexican market and for this market. And I believe the Trump administration, they want to avoid that. And they put a lot of pressure on Mexico and Canada today to make sure that they don't invite the Chinese car makers to produce in the country. Yeah, therefore, I would be, if I were a Chinese car maker, I wouldn't bet a lot on Mexico and Canada right now. I would focus on Southeast Asia, a lot of potential in the market. South America, Brazil, and so on, a lot of potential in the market for them, I believe. And maybe Europe, I think it's the first step, and then wait for the rest.
That's a good deal. So I worked for a German automotive supplier company as a family company, family-owned company. So
what is the name of the company?
Costa.
Costa.
So yeah. So now I think for multinational companies, we do have some struggling between local, let's say, entity and the global headquarters. The thing is, we do have, let's say,
and Drew has the same apparently.
Yeah, I think so. So because now in China we have, let's say, China speeds, local standards, and of course in a national multinational company we have group standards. We how to balance, let's say, these two forces in your position, let's say.
Well, that's I think it's a challenge you have, Andrew.
For sure, it's a challenge, but it's about empowering the local teams.
Yeah, it's what we are trying to do. I mean, first of all, I believe it's even more difficult for a German company because French people, they are very flexible and agile, sometimes too much, because before joining OPmobility, I was the CEO of a German company, Benteler, family-owned company and so on. And when I came to OPmobility at the beginning, I thought it's fantastic to be a CEO in France because you say something, they say yes, boss. You decide, they say yes. In Germany, they discuss, but at the end they do.
No end.
In France, they say yes, but they don't do. It's really difficult. At the beginning, you have the feeling to have a strong power, but then you see no, they had in between another idea, and they decided to do differently, which is a challenge. No, but I really believe is empowering more and more the local teams, and potentially to many companies like our company. I showed before that we have a bumper, we have lighting, we have modules, we have fuel tanks. And we have for each business group, we have a global leader, and then they are in all the countries of the world. That is the way we are driving the organization. We are moving more and more to regional organization, where the regions will have more power and the business lines less, because you have to be really adapted to the market needs, which is completely different here than Europe or than US and so on.
I just have my 2 cents on the question this lady used to raise. Talking about the price war. My opinion is there's no price war. There's a faking things. It's a performance in front of our customers, our consumers. Imagine, I used to also be the CEO of one of the largest logistic company, DHL. DHL, I think you know that. We have plenty of the car, but for China, we have like 20,000 cars. But do you find the DHL using electricity car? We have a very scientifically counting the cost versus the usage the length of relationship, repair costs, all kind of costs. We think electricity car is far more expensive. So what they sell, these kind of, farmers, these local producer, they're selling 5 years electricity car and using the same price or maybe discounted price like the 10 years the oil cars. So that's not selling their price war. They are selling too far expensive. Now they cut it a little bit on the promotion. So this is the reality. And also, I think China, if they want to do something good, they need to have the people. To be honest, if you are a family from the first-tier cities, if your kids who is graduate from the top university and be hired by automobile company, I think your family is not so happy. To be honest. So to be honest, I'm not challenging anything. I just say this is because
thank
we are not.
Thank you for being so positive. Huh?
Yeah.
I will fly back to Paris. I have 14 hours flight, and we think about that. And maybe I change my job when I come. I say.
No. I just say they are still have because their efficiency is not so good. So that's why maybe their cost is far more expensive compared with the others. So they're cutting price. They're painful, but it is. But what they're selling, the value is not as high as the others. That's why they're
no, but I partially agree with you when you say the efficiency is not perfect because I mean the car makers like Volkswagen, they are not efficient. Therefore, they are under pressure right now. They have to reduce their price. When I mean price war is because they are losing money, some of them, which doesn't mean that the price is not the right one for the market. And they have to work on their efficiency. If you see the complete value chain with dealership, with and so on, it's not efficient, the automotive industry sometimes.
Yeah.
Therefore, I agree with you when you say, yes, but the price is the price which is a fair price. And if they are losing money, it's not only because of price war, it's because of lack of efficiency.
Just like a two diamond merchant, have a price war together.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laurent. I must say, and they know I don't always say this, I'd like to thank Jenny for the organization and the team. I would like to thank the audience because I really enjoyed this Q&A session because you were very good. I mean, the public, the audience was very knowledgeable about the auto making industry. And I would like to thank the CEO of tonight, Laurent, because you've done a great job. I have, as I was listening to your questions, I have found that that's the first time we had something on dealership and leadership. Same letters, good anagram, and you demonstrated that, you said it many times, people make the difference at the end of the day. But having to deal with this is extremely difficult, especially when you have to tackle different cultural environments. So you're here at home at CEIBS as long as you like. You can come back, and I'm sure there will be always good people to say hello. And thank you to also Andrew in your team.